After being begged by tenant rights groups to report rent payments to credit agencies to help tenants improve their credit scores, landlords are now being blamed for destroying tenants' credits for late rent payments. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over an issue that I covered a long time ago in a different video. And it's something I haven't really covered much lately, but it's basically these tenant rights groups. What they wanted landlords to do was to start reporting rent payments to the credit agencies because they said, hey, tenants, they don't have the opportunity to build their credit scores up, and this is going to make things better for the tenants so that they're able to eventually purchase a home because they'll have a credit history built, right? And as I mentioned in my prior video, well, this works both ways, and this could end up really hurting tenants too, because a lot of tenants, they have late rent payments. And imagine if your landlord suddenly was reporting to the credit agency all of your late rent payments. Okay, you're going to look like a horrible person to lend to, and your credit score is going to be just awful. It's going to make it so that you won't be able to buy a house ever. Okay, so you actually would probably prefer, from the grand majority of tenants would probably prefer if landlords did not report their rent payments to the credit agency because of this very issue, right? And that was my prediction, and now my prediction is coming true, and it's not surprising. It's not surprising at all because you put these extra burdens on landlords. Like, I believe it was a city or a town was actually thinking of passing a law that required landlords to do this, right? But you put this extra burden on the landlords thinking, oh, well, this is going to help people only. And then there's always unintended consequences, like there's additional expenses involved for landlords. There's additional reporting, and, it just makes it more difficult for us. And then it ends up hurting the tenants on top of that. So yeah, dumb idea. I'm glad that I feel like I am Nostradamus. I can predict the future, and because I saw this coming. I saw this coming a long time ago when I first talked about it. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think. Do you think it's a good idea for tenants, and I'm talking about particular for tenants, for landlords to report or not credit scores, but report rental payments to the credit agencies? Okay, do you think this is going to help tenants, or do you think it's going to hurt them? I know for a select few who are very good with paying their bills on time, it probably will help them build their credit history up. But for the grand majority of tenants, it's going to do nothing but harm them. Okay, and it's going to put an additional paperwork burden onto the landlords on top of that. That's why I don't agree with this sort of thing. But anyway, let's get into this article. They go into more of the details about, the failings of this supposedly great idea. Anyway, this article is coming from curbed.com, and it says landlords are tanking their tenants' credit scores. Yeah, they're destroying their tenants' credits, right? And part of me, I don't care. You pay your rent late. Guess what? That is the result. And pretty much any other debtor that you pay late, if you pay the debt that you owe to the car company where you bought your car, guess what? Your credit score is going to take a hit. So why shouldn't it be the same for tenants and landlord situation? But anyway, let's get into the article and see what it says. Deborah received an email over the summer from her management office announcing an exciting new program it had implemented for all the tenants in her 6-story Harlem building, relaying their rent payments to credit reporting agencies. By making timely payments, you can see an increase in your credit score, the letter read. Good credit is priceless. Unspoken in the email was what happens when tenants aren't paying their rent on time. At 137 West 141st Street, about a quarter of the tenants, including Deborah, had been withholding their rent since the pandemic because of poor conditions in the building. The elevators were often down, there were rats running through the halls, the heat and hot water were frequently shut off. They brought their issues to housing court to try to get them fixed, but some cases were dismissed, and one is still ongoing. Despite the legal measures they've taken, they say the landlord, Guardian Realty, which owns nearly 36 residential buildings across the city, only fixes things sporadically and will sit on problems for months. One tenant, Chico Knight, is considering paying for his own exterminator to rid his apartment of mice. As the years dragged on, the momentum faded and people started dropping out of the rent strike. Now, Deborah and her roommates are among the few holdouts remaining, and she has already seen the new program affect her score. About a month ago, my credit took a huge hit, Deborah said. This ensures it squashes out everyone except for the extremists. We're definitely paying a price. So, a couple of things in this article that are quite interesting, okay? And they're talking about this specific tenant's situation here, right? And you start to see, okay, we have a tenant who hasn't paid rent since before the moratorium. So basically, this person has not paid rent in over 3.5 years, okay? And they supposedly are withholding their rent due to maintenance issues within the building, which is a bunch of garbage. It's a bunch of garbage because they took it to court and their case was dismissed. Yet they are still withholding the rent. So imagine, here you are, you're a landlord, right? But that's not all, right? It says here, and it says that I believe they said it was a rent controlled building, okay? And it says, I don't see where I thought I saw that. But well, even if I'm going to have to assume that it's a rent controlled building, okay? But part of the reason the landlord is operating in this manner, make slow to make repairs, letting maintenance issues fall to the wayside, is because one, they're not paying the rent, but two, it's a rent controlled building, and the rents don't actually pay the landlord enough money to be able to do the maintenance issues to the building. So when you talk about, oh, my credit score is getting hit, woe is me. You've been living for free for 3.5 years, 3.5 years of pocketing, however much your rent was. Let's say it's $1,000 a month, just for simple math, right? I know that rents in New York can be much, much higher than that, but I want to do some simple math for you. For 3 years, that'd be $36,000. For 3.5 years, that'd be an additional $6,000. So you've saved over 40 grand. And this is just a theoretical 40 grand. I mean, your rent could be much lower than that if you've been in a rent controlled unit for a super long period of time, right? And so, but let's just say that you've saved 40 grand, tens of thousands of dollars that you've saved. And if the conditions are so horrible, like you describe, why did you stay there for so long? Why did your case get dismissed in court? Because you don't have a leg to stand on. You're full of crap. You're full of garbage. And now you're sitting here and complaining that the landlord, this is the only recourse the landlord had against bad tenants who are holding this rent strike, right? And I agree 100% with it. Destroy their credit. Make them look like the garbage tenants they are for not paying their debts, for living for free. You don't deserve to live for free. Just because the place isn't in the shape you think it should be in, you think you could live for free. And if the place is in such awful condition, why don't you move on? You don't, because you know it's a lie. You know it's a lie. I know it's a lie. Everyone from the outside knows it's a lie. It's like, well, I've just been forced to live here for free for the last 3.5 years. Yeah, okay, whatever. I don't believe it. It's a bunch of garbage. And now you're upset that your credit score is taking a hit. You don't deserve any credit. You have zero credit. And you should be blacklisted, honestly, because what are you going to do to the next landlord? After this landlord finally is able to get you up out of there, what are you going to do to the next landlord? Probably the same garbage, the exact same garbage. I don't have any sympathy for you. And it's hilarious that they wrote an article about this thinking, oh, everybody's going to be on this person's side. Not me, not anybody with common sense. And there's a lot of people out there with common sense. They see leeches such as yourself, for what you truly are. While landlords have long been able to report tenants' payments, few did so. But now, housing consumer advocates say that they've seen more of them use the threat of hurting tenants' credit scores since pandemic era eviction moratoriums and stronger rent laws passed in 2019. Landlords are looking for any sort of stick they can use as a collection tool without having to go to housing court, said Tashi Lahua, a legal aid society attorney. Absolutely. That is exactly what landlords are doing. And if tenants knew their credit was going to be destroyed, that they wouldn't be able to get a credit card, buy a car, they wouldn't be able to buy a house ever. Okay, do you really think that they would screw a landlord over? Heck no, they'd make their rent payments on time a lot more often. Okay, a lot more often. So, yeah, this is a very good tool to compel tenants to do what they promised they would do when they signed that contract. And you know what? I'm all for it. This is a ridiculous article, and I knew that this is exactly what was going to happen. Okay, I knew it. I knew that landlords were going to use this to their advantage, and I don't blame them. I think, yeah, it is a burden on to the landlord, but guess what? Just the thought of getting back at this tenant who tried to screw me over, man, that makes me feel good. It makes me feel good that these landlords, they thought of that up in a place like New York, where they don't have a lot of tools they can use to go after these tenants who are screwing them.